it's a strange little deck that sees a little bit of success. I've seen a couple of people actually playing it in the room. One who played in Kansas City, and I'm spacing on his name, but I know we got him under the tent for a match in there. His list has some interesting numbers. We've got a few threes, like 3 sinkhole, 3 dark ritual, 3 curse.
You don't see 3 sinkholes every day.
No, you don't see 3 sinkhole. Usually it's I'm gonna sinkhole you, or nah, that's not something I'm into.
Yeah. But definitely
the one top for the the value.
Sure, because the first one's free, right?
Yeah. A turn 1 Kurt Ape for Shane Downey.
Now with 4 Innocent Blood, 4 Smallpox, and 4 Liliana, this deck has no shortage of Edict effects. Do you think that has given it a big advantage in this field full of Show and Tell Emrakul type stuff?
Sure. I think being able to actually beat a creature once it's put into play, regardless of the nature of in which you cheat it. Omniscience is obviously kind of a problem, because they can just cast their Emrakul through the Omniscience. But he does have some duresses, which can help him keep those kind of interactions from occurring.
Who generally has the advantage in this Mono Black Pox Zoo matchup?
I will admit to having not playtested this one extensively, but I think I've got to give at least the game 1 advantage to the Pox deck, because it's got so much removal that's pretty efficient. And I can even see situations where the LD is costing Zoo a lot, because after all, Zoo only has, let's see, we've got like 9 lands that actually tap for mana, and some of them are basics or not searchable like Caracas, so you can actually kind of very awkwardly strand them without specific lands.
So we're seeing that powerful turn 2 Smallpox here, taking out a Kurt Ape and stunting Shane's mana development and taking out a potential future threat. And at the same time, it's actually improving the quality of Dustin's draw a little bit, because he's a little bit mana flooded. He doesn't need all this mana.
Sure. So you have an extra Urboard, because then it's just a straight up free roll, right? Nope, that's, I guess, not an Urboard, something else. Maybe a Mishra. Oh, it's an Elspeth versus Tezzeret Mishra's Factor, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And he's just relying on the Urboard to keep his mana what he needs.
Wasteland keeping Shane off of lands. He's down 2 lands now. That was his only Savannah, and he has 1 Taiga left in his deck. So if he loses another Taiga and a Force, he actually doesn't have green mana anymore.
So, him to Turok, just, while you're in the market to be disrupting him, but Shane's mana base already smashed by the Wasteland Smallpox combo.
He functionally has a 0 card hand at the moment when he can't cast any of the cards in it. Can't really see what we're hitting there with the him that well. That's a Wild Nicodle. Interesting, I assume that's what we drew last turn. Hit an Air Mesa, and now we're playing it safe.
It's on the Wasteland and the Duress. What do you think about, I guess he needs to be able to swing with the Factory here, but he wants to take a look to see if there's a Bolt.
Sure.
And there is.
There's a Bolt. I imagine we're just taking the Bolt and then attacking. I don't really...
Yeah, hitting that Nicodle was pretty big.
It was. Keep Shane from actually getting a threat on the board, and Dustin's out of removal, so he would have had to rely on just trading hits with his Factory or potentially holding it back to block, which is not a great proposition.
So far everything coming together nicely. All it would take from this position is a Curse Scroll or a Liliana to really put this game, pretty much put this game away.
Well, land off the top for Shane is going to give him access to most of his hand. He has to fetch carefully though, because he knows that he knows there could be. He doesn't know there actually is a sinkhole in Dustin's hand. I think he just checked his graveyard to make sure he knew which lands were in his deck there.
Now he does have all the basics, but he doesn't have the ability to search up a forest, which he would need for his Pride Mage or his Tarmogoyf.
Yep, so he'd have to risk his last Taiga, which at this point he just has to do. I imagine Dustin will immediately point sinkhole at the Taiga.
Because if he goes and gets Plateau and Taiga, this is going to leave... Dustin can respond with a Sinkhole and a Wasteland, leaving him once again with no mana.
Yep. Do you like getting the Plateau? I think I might have gotten like a mountain there, probably. Maybe a Plains.
See, I think you got to get the white mana. Because if you're going to get the Taiga, you have to have the white mana for the Pride Mage. Besides, maybe not, but I just think that if you're sitting there on a mountain, you're already mana screwed. Make him use his Sinkhole.
That's fair.
So after Dustin cripples Shane's mana base, he's going to be mostly all in on this Tarmogoyf, right?
Yep. And Dustin's got a number of answers to Tarmogoyf in his deck, but none available at the moment.
He does have another factory though, so after he cripples Shane's mana base, he'll be able to and put down his next factory. He'll be able to hold off the Tarmogoyf just on the strength of 2 factories.
Yep, that's our turn.
So now, how big is that Tarmogoyf here? Creatures, land, sorceries.
We have an instant from the Bolt.
Instant, so 4/5.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Mishra's Factory. The first factory can only become a 4/4 this turn.
Right.
However, next turn he's threatening to make the. He's threatening to be able to. Actually, even this turn, because of Dark Ritual.
Yep.
He's going to be able to trade 1 Mishra's Factory for that Tarmogoyf.
That's very true. He only needs 1 active, and by conserving his rituals until this point in the game, he can use them as one-shots.
And I think Shane's doing the math that he's going to come out with, all right, it's safe to attack. And then Dark Ritual is going to...
Yep.
Does Dustin decides to just take it?
Dustin takes it. Interesting. We drew a Bajuka Bog there. That'll serve to shrink our Tarmogoyf, yeah.
Yeah, it makes the Tarmogoyf quite a bit smaller. Now there's just sorceries. So that is a 1/2 Tarmogoyf.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for
Hopefully we'll get
attending
the die
Kamikaze.
corrected shortly.
Take some of us home with you. All Kamikaze merchandise is 50% off.
Is that
T-shirts,
Ratchet Bomb?
iPhone covers.
Oh, that's going to complicate
sweatshirts, and
Shane's life
bags.
significantly.
All Kamikaze merchandise is 50% off. Stop by the merch booth on your way out.
And a Ratchet Bomb, as if he needed another line of defense. So now, what do you think about him just activating it immediately? Does it matter? Is it just irrelevant?
I think that it's probably irrelevant. There's not really anything that a zoo deck should generally be able to do about it, right? Maybe just a little shortcut, trying to play riskily. You know, Pox is a deck that can take a while to grind the opponent out. Sometimes you're trying to kill him with a Nether Spirit or a Curse Scroll just over and over, or a Mishra's Factory. So perhaps he's simply shortcutting and has developed these over time playing the deck.
Absolutely.
Can we get the judge to correct the die on the Tarmogoyf? I just want to make sure that we aren't misinforming our viewers or our players, to be totally honest. Tarmogoyf at a 2/3. The land sorcery.
Is that actually true?
I think that's true. Dustin's the only one with a graveyard, right? He has land sorcery?
He has land?
He has wasteland.
It's buried under Smallpox, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, he has a wasteland and the other land he sacrificed, 2 Smallpox.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Ratchet Bomb's on 2. That Tarmogoyf, not long for the world. And a Dark Ritual to let us duress and attack.
Want a Lightning Bolt check? Path to Exile. Good enough. Very timely discard spells by Dustin.
And that's pretty much all for Dustin this turn. Are you gonna pop? Do you think he pops the Ratchet Bomb this time, or does he continue to just make sure Shane can't commit another creature?
Might as well wait. Well, not if Dustin's at 4. Wow. Yeah, if Dustin's at 4, I think you have to blow the bomb.
Yep, I think that's fair. Our slow life total update there, tricking us slightly.
Very fortunate to not walk into a Stifle. I mean, it's unlikely that a Zoo player would have Stifle, but
that's fair.
It would have been brutal.
Looks like we have another Bajuka Bog, so Tarmogoyf would have been pretty much nothing at this point.
Another Ritual, the Ratchet Bomb into play. Power up the factory, attack, 1 will get bolted. So Shane, after the sequence, will be at 4, meaning he has 2 turns. 2 turns to try to draw out of this.
well, while I didn't agree with grabbing Plateau before, I think I'm okay with grabbing it now because at this point, if we lose another land, we're just dead anyway, right?
And hoping to draw path is still a thing. And that Ratchet Bomb in play ensures that Shane really doesn't have a lot of options besides draw a removal spell in the next 2 turns, you know?
Dustin's low enough that he could be on the line of just peel bolts too, right? No? Okay.
Interesting. Was Shane, I guess...
Perhaps Shane's life
Shane
total
was
also
supposed to be at 4.
A little incorrect.
Yeah, I
there.
believe Shane was supposed to be at 4, but if he gets hit, he would drop to 2. Well...
Difficult to know what's going on there. A little slow on the updates with the life
The
total.
main thing we do know is that Smallpox is good against Curdy.
And good against a Curdy. Smallpox did do a lot of work in that game. So did the Sinkhole Wasteland turn. I think that was like the big turn.
What does Shane
just
have
to
in his
find the
sideboard
game.
here?
Shane's sideboard appears like a pretty typical Zoo sideboard, aka not positioned against Pox.
Yeah, he doesn't really have a single thing.
No, yeah, I wouldn't want to be bringing in Jittes. I guess I could see bringing in like 1 Ancient Grudge as an answer to those Ratchet Bombs, because once you draw 1, it's kind of viable. It actually maybe
No, it gets the factories. I'd bring in both grudges.
Bring in both, yeah. It's a good card to discard to Sinkhole or Smallpox also.
And
so
Swords
that's
to
fair.
Plowshares is probably better than Path Exile, right?
Yeah, I'd say that's true. I think you're probably boarding out just probably both the paths, right? Do you really want? Well, I guess Gaddock Teague's just a Grizzly Bear too, right?
Yeah, I mean Gaddock
maybe
Teague,
like a Teague and
I think Gaddock Teague's pretty bad. I think you can board out all the Teagues.
Really? Okay.
Maybe not, but like Teague, Canonist has got to be better than Teague, right?
Oh, yeah, that's
like
a
at least
reasonable way to
Canonist
look at
messes
it.
up Dark Ritual.
That's a reasonable way to look
But
at
for
it.
the most part, the main thing is you want to look to get these 2 grudges in here, and if nothing else, upgrade Path to a Plow. So 2 grudges and 2 plows could become 4 paths, although I'd also like to see the Gaddock Teagues go out, so maybe 2 Canonists come in and maybe keep 1 of the paths.
Sure.
I don't know.
It's really awkward to note that these changes also are just like slight
So
upgrades.
minor.
Like, yeah, it's
You
like,
probably
this
bring in
creature's
Bojuka
just a
Bog,
little
actually.
better.
Outside of the fact that Bojuka Bog could randomly hit another spirit, it's just another land, right? Like, it's not a good land by any means, but at least you can sack it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
and it
there's
helps
still
cast the Knight of the
time.
Reliquary, which is going to be a
Brought
very
to you
difficult
by
to cast
Activision, Walking
That's
Dead
fair.
video game.
On the other
One of
side,
our favorite
Dustin
sponsors wants to
Cristos
give you
is
$10
playing
off on our Zombie
Parishes.
Apocalypse course.
He's got
See if
Nile
you can
Spellbomb, which can,
survive.
I mean, I don't know if you
Brought
want the
to you
Nile
by our
Spellbomb, but it
friends
is an option against both Knight of the
Activision.
Reliquary and
You
Tarmogoyf.
dare.
He's got Engineer Plague, which I don't think this is the matchup for, but it is another option depending on... No, he's not going to bring it in here. It'll just be Parishes and possibly Nile Spellbombs, I think.
Yep.
For the most part, he's just well set up
He's-
game 1, you know?
He came here planning to annihilate decks like Shane's, and he's very likely going to do so. Game 1 was really
Take
the game that
Kamikaze
Yeah.
home
Shane
with
might have
you.
been able to get.
All Kamikaze merch is 50%
Savannah is a
off.
pretty
All
clear
t-shirts,
indicator that you
all
are
iPhone
not a
covers,
favorite against
all
smallpox.
sweatshirts, all bags. All Kamikaze merch is 50% off.
What typically
Bring it
gives
home with
these
you.
mono black decks the toughest time, though?
Stop by the
To
merch booth in
counterbalance?
the lobby on
I
your way
think that the
out.
counterbalance decks have to be a little tough, right? Because they can kind of defend their mana bases. The card Spell Snare itself, depending on how popular it is at the time, can just be really tough.
Yeah, Shane's Zoo deck is definitely very vulnerable to the Inquisition of Kozilek, Smallpox, Hymn to Turok, Element of Discard. Even the Duresses we saw be valuable.
Yep.
But how much is this Disruption package actually effective against some of the combo decks? Is it enough? Like the combo decks that don't rely on an Emrakul?
I think that Inquisition is actually getting significantly worse against a lot of these decks. Their resiliency to Inquisition specifically by being able to either like keep hands that don't have the primary combo enabler, which is usually Show and Tell or maybe a Burning Wish. You can often just not be able to take the thing that's the most important, and that's a real problem.
This matchup looks, or this deck looks like it might have a little bit of trouble against a blue-white deck. If somebody sat down with Spell Pierces, Spell Snares, Counter Spells, Force of Wills, and all that, and then they just bought a couple turns and dropped a Jace,
Yep.
like that would be
Once a Jace is in
real
play,
bad.
he's real bad off against that. He's basically his planning Jace is to keep them below 4 mana, him it, or he
Duress,
can duress it. And
Once it
Ratchet
hits
Bomb
them.
is a semi-viable thing.
Yep. as expected, mono black Pox. Crushing Zoo game 1. Even though the life total was well, it was a little off on our screen, but it was there was a fair bit of damage being dealt to Dustin. Oh, he was never really in any danger, just because he has so much control over Shane's mana and hand that he was never really in danger of getting burnt out. Doesn't even really have that many dual lands, so it's not like if Shane played Price of Progress, he'd have that as a haymaker.
No.
What does Shane need to do? I mean, obviously it's nice if Dustin doesn't draw Smallpox, but what does Shane need to do himself? What are his good plays?
He wants to keep heavier land hands, I think, because if he can just get like a couple of threats to stick without having to lose too many resources on them, he's not as bad off. And he really wants Dustin to, by contrast, just draw more of his cards that destroy lands versus cards that destroy creatures, I think. As long as he can get use out of his land before it gets destroyed, it's not so bad.
Okay.
Smallpox being the card that does both of these things, however, making it kind of dangerous.
Like being on the play here is huge. Last
Yes.
game he got Smallpox after his first turn 1 Curdape. This time he's got at least a turn reprieve.
Right, so if his hand is, say, another 2-drop creature or 2 and then a bunch of lands, he can just go creature land, even as he's getting Edicted and Smallpox and Sinkhold.
Seems like right here what he really wants is 2 1-drops.
2 1-drops would be.
But it looks like he's stuck with a little bit too much removal in his hand. At least he has a mana-heavy hand.
Yep, we have a mana-heavy hand, but no creatures, and it looks like 3 spells.
I'm not actually sure you want the Chain Lightnings at all. I could kind of see the Chain Lightning just being a canonist. It's not good, but like, a random dude is probably better than a Chain Lightning, right?
That might be fair.
A Chain Lightning is never really doing anything. You're aspiring to get a Lava Spike if everything goes well. So why don't these mono black decks splash white for Vindicate? You know, the Chris Pakula popularized the Dead Guy Ale style of black-white, which is basically mono black with Vindicate. Sure. Why don't the mono black decks play Vindicate anymore?
Honestly, I couldn't answer. I'm not familiar with the strategy myself. Reed Duke might be a good person to ask if he happens to be listening to us or watching the stream. He's a big fan of
if anybody can
Smallpox.
send up the Reed Duke signal. Didn't know from Reed Duke.
What would that be? Just like a bowl cut in a circle, or
just $1 million smile?
Oh, okay. That's reasonable too. And does Dustin lacks the mana to drop a Liliana this turn?
Now his mana is a little tenuous without a Nurborg.
Yep. Perhaps one of the reasons he sticks to the mono black before our very eyes. His hand, however, does have a ton of creature removal, so Shane's going to want to be pretty careful about deploying his guys. I don't know that there's a lot he can do. Interestingly, he's protecting with basics this time around. He's wise to the problems that can arise from non-basic lands now.
Yeah, and plus once you have a critical mass, I mean, when you're short, you often just need to crutch on those dual lands. But when you got plenty, often you can just go get all your basics so that you'll have plenty for the long run. We see a Windswept Heath threatening to go get a forest to ensure that Shane has whatever mana he wants for the rest of the game.
And we have a Kasali Pride Mage on the table.
Kasali Pride Mage is a very legit threat. Its ability to blow up a factory at instant speed gives it a little bit more versatility, plus it is hitting for 3.
It's certainly going to meet an Innocent Blood or a Smallpox or something. I anticipated being an Innocent Blood, as Dustin is now himself a little low-maned. Looks like he has a Dark Ritual in there to help him land his Liliana if he wants to do that this turn. I imagine he will, so...
It's possible he just Innocent Bloods and then saves the Dark Ritual for next turn when he can go Innocent Blood and Liliana. Oh, maybe he just hops and finds the Liliana that way.
He already has a Liliana in his hand, doesn't he? Or was that a top? I think he has 2. He's going to start with an Innocent Blood. Yeah, he has another Liliana on top in addition to the one in his hand.
Oh, okay.
If you're Shane, do you pop the Pride Mage just to make your opponent pop the top? Like, make them a little more inefficient there? I don't know how much it matters, right?
Yeah.
But it could.
Yeah, I think it's just the right play.
We're going to lose Swords instead of Path?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'd rather discard the path. It doesn't matter too much.
Our opponent is missing land drops.
Yeah.
We definitely don't want to give him a swamp. He just had to Dark Ritual to cast his spells.
Yeah, and you're probably just discarding that path next turn to the Liliana, but still better to give yourself the better option.
Sure. Well, we're well set up to beat all those sinkholes and wastelands and whatnot, but we're not well set up to beat a stream of innocent blood type effects, so...
Yeah, this Liliana is going to be real hard for Shane. And that might be part of the reason why he needs the Chain Lightning, is to help keep Liliana off the table, but that's a tough way to do it, without question.
That's rough. Now what if he was playing Caleb's old Blue Zoo list? That deck could play some Jaces.
Yeah.
That'd be a nice spot to be in right here.
So, basic forest, basic mountain, basic plains, and taiga. From the Whiteboarded Revised School of Basic Land. Facing down 2 Mishra's Factories, a Beta Swamp, a Liliana at 4, and a Sensei's Divining Top. Dustin still looking for that second black mana, but in the driver's seat thanks to action lands and a Liliana that's slowly eating away at Shane's resources.
Yeah, I anticipate Dustin playing pretty conservatively here.
And there's the top that finds the swamp. If he had used the Pride Mage like you had suggested, he'd be without land for 1 additional turn.
That's true.
Now are we going to see a Hymn to Turok?
Looks like
he has Perish and Smallpox. Is that what he has?
I think he may have a him in his top 3 with top, but I anticipate him just playing this real slow.
It seems like he's giving up on the mana denial and instead focusing on the discard element.
He just wants to make Shane discard all of the potential removal spells and then go ahead and start attacking with his factories while relying on Liliana or whatever removal spells he has on top in addition to Perish. Oh, he discarded Perish. He has Smallpox now. I guess that's fair.
And it does seem like he's very close to Liliana's ultimate, which he's going to use eventually to disrupt Shane's mana base. Probably not when Liliana's at 6.
No.
But it is very possible when she gets to 7.
Well, Shane, it looks like, now has a Chain Lightning and a Bolt, so he can clear the Liliana.
And it looks like that's what he's going to do.
Yep. Go ahead and clear Liliana and play a Wild Nicodle.
And what's interesting is because Shane fetched up all of his basic lands, he can't use this path on the Nicodle, in the event that he got Smallpoxed.
Right.
Because the Smallpox is going to kill the Nicodle and the card in his hand. If he had kept 1 basic land in his hand, he would be able to get a little bit more value out of the situation.
It's tricky to know when you need to be fetching basics and when not. When I first started my forays into Legacy, I really wanted to play decks that could play basics because I'd seen so many players get wasteland out of games, but it's hard.
So this is going to be a Smallpox, probably sacking a factory with 1 mana floating. Interesting, Shane gives up his white mana, leaving himself with a forest, a mountain, and a taiga.
That's rough. I don't know if I agree with that. I think we give up red mana here, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, giving up a mountain seems so low cost.
Yeah.
It seems like you want to be able to keep a plains to make sure that you can draw a Knight of the Reliquary, or, a Gaddock Tiger, a Loam Lion,
yeah,
or
we
a
have
Catholic
3
Pride
mana. A
Mage.
Knight would be sweet.
Man, if he discards a Knight here, it is going to be real hard. Oh, it's
Pride
the Pride
Mage.
Mage. Man, he really needed to give up that mountain. That is
Brought in Jittes.
That is a real tough spot.
I don't think I approve of bringing in Jitte when we know our opponent has at least 2 Ratchet Bomb.
It's been real tough for him to keep a creature in play at all,
Yeah.
so I think a Jitte is ambitious.
If we bring in the Jitte, we have to board out a lot more spells, like all of the Chain Lightnings or something extreme like that.
He packs it up.
He's
Dustin is the winner. 2-0 with Mono Black Pox over Zoo. A total nightmare matchup for Zoo.
Yep.
No surprises in this match. So I think we're going to